If you just have an agency or a company and all they do is just run your AdWords and your Facebook, and they don't talk about like doing audits or analytics or Google Tag Manager, they don't talk about landing pages, so they don't even talk about like taking the information from your campaign and applying it to your website so you have a better experience. And that's definitely not an agency you want to work with. Like, why work with a company who's doing the bare minimum just to like keep you as a client and get by?
Hello and welcome to the Jumpstart podcast with Jeffalytics. I'm your host, Jeff Sauer. Today, for our 51st episode, we'll talk with Duane Brown, paid media expert and the founder of Take Some Risk. My introduction to Duane was a totally organic event that came together with remarkable efficiency. It all started when Duane went to speak at the Big Digital Conference in Adelaide, where he was a guest of our friend Shaw Menz, who you might have heard in episode number 46. While listening to that episode, AJ Wilcox, who is from episode 44, had heard Duane's name as being one of the guests at the conference, and he sent him a tweet saying, "Hey, I heard about you on the podcast." Within a few minutes, I had a new guest booked to be on episode number 51. And you know what? It's great when things work out that way. Duane is one of those avatars that I've seen around for a while in PPC Chat, the Moz community, basically all over the place, really. And after seeing him and reading his articles, I've been wanting to hear his story for a while now, so this was the perfect opportunity. I gotta say, Duane was a trooper as our recording session went through a schedule change so that I could have lunch with my 91-year-old grandpa. And then he was also amazing during the technical difficulties recording the podcast while I was talking to him from an undisclosed location in Minnesota, aka my parents' guest bedroom. What's with the poor internet in the United States anyway? Get it together, Estados Unidos. It doesn't surprise me that Duane can roll with the punches, though. He's worked in internet marketing all over the world. He's traveled to 40 countries, and he puts a lot of passion into every project that he touches. It was great to hear about all the experiences that brought Duane into his current foray into entrepreneurship, and I know you're going to enjoy it too. If you're interested in learning how to pursue a dream of freelancing, consulting, or even starting your own agency, then you're going to love my chat with Duane Brown. Visit jeffalytics.com/risk for show notes. Okay, so we're here with Duane Brown. Duane, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
So Duane, the first question I like to ask on the podcast is about your background. Was there a project or something that you worked on that got you excited about this world of digital marketing?
Sure. I went to college for public relations, so I was one of those people that wrote press releases all day, and I kind of realized I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Like, I don't want to be 40 and writing press releases. And so I got a job at like an advertising company that focused on like branding and HR communications. And I felt I would go into advertising because I had really good ideas. I was being like 23. I thought these were really good ideas and I thought clients would like it. And getting to work on like, this is 07 to 09, getting to work on like research and motion, which, obviously back then it was like the Apple of phones, and getting to work on some big Canadian brands and even like H&M for a while was like really experienced because I realized, these brands and clients don't know everything, and there's lots of people out there who like want more knowledge. And it was a good job to teach me also just the fact that like clients, and this is going to sound super cliche, but clients honestly don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And even though it is super cliche, it's really true. Like the clients who love me are the clients who realize that every opportunity there is, if I can teach them something or show them something they didn't know and like increase their knowledge, they tend to, put it bluntly, fall in love with me. If a client the other day, a VP at like a financial tech, she's like, "I love you, Duane, you're awesome. We don't want to lose you. We don't care how many hours you spend on our account. We just care that we see like we're making money every month. And even though we're not number one today, like in the Canadian market, we know like in the long run we can become a lot closer than we are today." So that first job, I think, in advertising really sort of told me I could like do this and make it. And even though it's been a winding road, it's been a fun one.
Awesome. That's really cool to hear. And I think, a lot of us start out with this intention of getting into something because it's cool or for whatever reason, but it's cool to see that you were able to jump into it right away and actually work on some pretty big clients as you went through it. So, and as I look through your, what you've gone through in your career, it seems like you've been working in different positions since then and all over the world, really. So, how does that all come together? How do you progress through your career and through the jobs that you work in?
That's a great question, actually. I get that a lot from recruiters because they always look at my CV and they're like, "Oh, Duane, that's like an interesting CV," or "It's super fascinating," which is their word of like, "I've worked in a million places." I think early on in my career, I didn't realize what I'm about to say now, and it took a few moves to realize this. But I kind of, whenever I have a job offer, I think about, is this job offer or opportunity in this case to work with a client somewhere I want to go? And then I also think about, are there skills I'm going to acquire in this role or job or contract, whatever it is, that I currently don't have and I want to get? And I think that's super important because you can take a job and make lots of money, and that is totally awesome as well. But getting skills that can help you level up and become better at what you do is really important. Like on Reddit, lots of people ask, how do I get ahead in my career? And I'm like, you could just do paid for the next 40 years and maybe be content. But if you want to like either start your own company or move on up, I think understanding how to manage people is really important. Understanding things like Google Tag Manager, Google Analytics, all the analytical stuff. Because it's 2017. I wouldn't hire someone unless they were super junior who didn't know how to use Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager. It's like table stakes in 2017 to be really good at your job. And if you can't use those skills, you're pretty much a useless marketer. So I think really understanding where I wanted to go was really important. And what sort of took me to like Australia and London, England. I was dating a guy at the time and I really liked him. And one day he kind of just dumped me out of the blue. And I was really depressed for like, and this was 2011. I was depressed for May. I'm not going to lie. It also rained the whole month of May in Toronto, where I'm from. One day I woke up and realized I was being really stupid and foolish, and like guys come and go. And I didn't have a lot of money in my bank account at that time because I'd lost my job at the agency because it went under, and this was 2 years later. And I tried to figure out, okay, well, if I'm going to become poor in the next 6 months and have to sleep on my mom's couch, which I know she'd give me because that's all she has, what are the things that I really want to do? And so I put on a conference in Toronto for a couple of years, and everyone laughs at me when I say this, but I wanted to go to Australia because I wanted to see a koala in person. I've never seen a koala before. I thought it'd be really cool. Also, Australia was the farthest place away I could go to from Toronto without like circling the world and coming back to Toronto. So I'm like, I applied for a visa, I bought a ticket. Ironically met a guy 2 months before I left and told him like, I love you and you are like awesome and you like husband material, but I have to go. So if I don't go now, I may never have this chance again. And obviously I came back to Toronto and he had a new boyfriend, and that was expected. But that move to Australia was like really pinnacle in my career because I worked for one of the big telecoms down there. I got to be a squad lead and manage people and help my boss learn how to do AdWords. And it also taught me like I can move to a country, I can get a job as long as I like work hard, I can sell myself, and having the skill to sell yourself is really important. Whether you're selling yourself to clients or selling yourself in a job, understanding how you talk about your skill set and the value you add as a young person is really important. And it's not something I figured out at 21 or 22. It took years of like saying the same thing over and over, figuring out like, what did I say that didn't make sense? Or what did I say that people didn't really resonate with? And like refining my pitch. And if you ask me now, I've got like this awesome pitch when I sell myself, but it definitely took the last 13 years of just every year working at it and chipping away to find out how do I position myself that's a little bit different in the market. And then when I came back from Australia, I worked in Toronto for 9 months for some of the freelance clients I had that I kept when I went to Australia, and I realized I wasn't really happy, and so I kind of left to move to England for 2 years and got a job and doing some stuff for one of their big nonprofits, and then I got a job at an agency by luck who worked on Jack Wills, which is British inspired Hollister chain, basically. So big brand that like One Direction loves. And then from there, just job working on ASOS, which is a huge fashion brand. Then I got a job at a startup running analytics because I was the only one who could do analytics and run marketing. No one else had that skill set. People could like write a press release or like manage SEO, but they couldn't use analytics if it depended on me. And that sort of just let me step up and take over the team. Which is why I said before, it's important to have skills beyond your core competency, and analytics is one of those things you have to have, and managing people you do not have to do, but it is a good skill to acquire because it teaches you a lot about like communication and how to communicate with people. Like one of the big things I learned in England was like, I may say something, my peer may say it, but even though we've said the same thing and used the same words, we may actually mean two very different things. Like I may say that pizza was really hot, and I might mean by that it is literally really hot and it's burning me. Where my British friend might say that pizza is really hot, and they might mean like that pizza is like really cool or really yummy or something like that. So understanding that people who say something may not mean what you mean, and having that communication and talk with people, I think is really valuable when you communicate with people, especially from like different cultures. And then I came back from England after going traveling in Asia for 3 months on my own. And I got a job at Unbounce, which is like a landing page builder. They offered me a job, and I said, sure, I'll move out to Vancouver because I'd never lived there, and I thought it'd be fun to live on the East Coast or the West Coast for a while because I am from the East Coast and been from Toronto most of my life. And so I moved out here just over 2 years ago. And then in January, I quit my job because I realized Unbounce isn't going to be where I want to go for my skill set, and there are things I want to work on that I'm not getting. So I quit my job, and my CMO was a little bit depressed, and he tried to convince me to stay on multiple occasions. And I told him, this is like, I've been here 2 years, things aren't going to change. I need to like spread my wings. And there's tons of startups and brands who just, aren't happy with the agency they have, or they need someone with more experience. But kind of like when you date someone you don't know, you can do better than what you currently have because what you have right now you think is pretty great. When you've met someone who has a slightly better skill set and they've leveled up, you realize you can do better as a brand or as a company. And so I've got like 2 main clients. I'm doing like project for 4 clients, both here and in the States. And clients are pretty cool. Like they all like me and they like sort of the way I think, and now it's just figuring out how do I scale that and just do more of everything.
That's fascinating. I just love this. I mean, it's really like a total lesson in how everything fits together, and that is you can have one job, and you can play that role, and it can fulfill you. But like you said, you could do PPC for the rest of your career or whatever that morphs into 20 years from now. But really, it's all about understanding everything. It sounds like really you wanted to know how to get a role that did everything and tied it all together, for example. And then from there, just to keep on expanding. And it's interesting, like you're expanding your world, like literally your world that you're in, as well as expanding your skill set. I like what you said about analytics being table stakes as well. I think that it is. I think that it's funny how, I teach analytics, and a lot of times I tell people, yes, an analyst should know analytics, but that's sort of given that they know analytics. But if you're a project manager or an account manager or anything, you need to understand how this works as well, because it affects everything you do. If you can't measure the results, then what's the point? But then also just seeing your vision and your ability to recognize, hey, even though I have an ideal job, even though this job sounds great, and that I know you from your Unbounce days, just seeing, I think I saw you at MozCon last year, and just all the different things that's opened up for you. It sounds like your destiny, if you will, at some point was to be able to have that complete picture, right? It's like everything you've done was like assembling the different puzzle pieces that go into what fulfills you. And then finally, after a certain amount of time, you're like, I'm ready to put the puzzle together. Is that pretty accurate as to how it worked?
I would say, looking back on it, sure. I mean, obviously, I didn't think that 10 years ago. I mean, the job where we worked on Research and Motion and H&M and like TELUS, which is a big telecom in Canada, and CIBC, which was one of our 5 big banks, but especially RIM, they were very analytics driven. They didn't want me to spend a cent until I could prove how it was going to be tracked and how they could prove who applied for which job on their website. Because working with the HR team, our job was to like use paid search and use just digital advertising to help them find more people who could be engineers at RIM, because this is their heyday. They were hiring hundreds of engineers a month in like 5 different cities across the US. Plus they had temporary locations and hiring also people in Vancouver. And so RIM was just like, I would give you money, Duane, but you got to prove how it's going to like make us a return on investment. And one thing I remember doing, and this was like a huge risk, and I can only tell the story because it worked out. And I guess I could have told the story if it didn't work out. But I remember a client, like Rim came to me, and I think her name was Jill at the time. She's like, "Oh, Duane, we have this event in like Atlanta, and we have everyone spending tons of money in advertising, and I got you like, I think it was like 5K out of the 25K they were going to spend, because they were going to spend like 20K on print." And I was like, I went to our contact, Jewel, and I went to the account manager internally, and like, I need more money. Like, I need at least 10. I mean, you can't just give me like the bare minimum here. I need to be able to like do my job. And Rim was going for, I think, about 400 people at that event, because they were opening a new office in Atlanta, and it was like going to be a hub for them. Because with like MailChimp and tons of other companies in the city and the state there's a lot of talent. And so I had like an option of like different things I could do. And so I said, Rim, we should do like X, Y, and Z. And I remember, when I got the email from the client, it was like, Duane, things went really well. We had, I think, like 300 people at the event as an example. And we're going to ask like 100 people to come back for final round interviews and stuff like that. And I was like, awesome. And I was like, oh, well, how many of those people that are asking to come back were from the paid stuff? She's like, well, let me look. And she looked, and she said there was like, out of the 100 people that are going to go for final interviews and make job offers for, most likely, like 70 or 75 of them came from like the work that I did. And even though I had a smaller budget than the rest of everyone else in the team and everyone internally, I was able to drive a bigger part of the people who wanted to not only work at RIM, but also make it through their vetting process. Because this is RIM, you go through like multiple rounds of interviews, you take tons of tests. And that wasn't only a light bulb moment for me that like this stuff actually works. It was a light bulb moment for like RIM, where they're like, over the next 2 months, they like up my budget to $25K a month and just like spend doing as much as you need, just get us more of those people. And it was really valuable, but I wouldn't have like known that if I didn't ask the right questions, and I wouldn't be able to like tell that story now if I didn't like understand like the importance of analytics, and I wouldn't be able to like put the pieces together if I didn't go through analytics. So I think it's a bit of like trial and error. So analytics just made sense because clients kind of forced me to go down that road, even though like I will be the first to admit I suck at Excel. I suck at math back then, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, but I'm really good at Excel and I'm really good at math now. So even if you don't have a skill set in a certain area, but you need to do it, you can develop yourself in that area. You just have to push yourself to get out of the comfort zone. And then beyond like paid analytics, I just took things I was interested in. So, I was interested in a little bit in SEO because it affects, what I do. I was interested in managing people or landing pages or whatever the skill was. And I just slowly built on my skill set as I go. I look at my skill set as like analytics and paid media, and then everything else is things I have a pretty good understanding of. But obviously, if I needed to get an expert, I'd hire one of my friends or someone else who knows way more than I do. And so, yeah, I've definitely put together the puzzle now, because like I've managed people, I've managed squads, I've built landing pages for 2 years in a bounce. I've run campaigns literally in 30 countries, plus 7 different languages. And I've managed teams, as large as 8 and spending £500,000 a month. And there's teams as small as like me and managing like $100,000 a month. But I think everyone's puzzle will be really different. And a friend actually said something really good a few years ago. It's like you have all these different like dots on a page, and your ability to like assemble those dots in a line and only using one line is like a really valuable skill set, because not everyone can like look at lots of dots on a page and understand like how they all work together and how they form like a puzzle. And that's something I think that comes with time, because I freelanced twice before this as like full disclosure, and the first time did not go very well. So that's when I took the first job at the ad agency, and then the second time after the ad agency, it definitely went a lot better than the first time. But then I left and went abroad and got more international experience. And this time it's gone really well. It's been 5 months now, so things have gone like really well. And I think part of something I tell every young people, and I said this earlier, is that like networking is super important. Like you never know when some odd contact you met at some place becomes like a client or recommends someone to you. Like I met somebody on a flight to Australia last month when we went to go talk at a conference. And even though I don't think the conversation will go anywhere beyond the conversation we had on the flight, he might become a client or he might recommend someone. But I wouldn't have like gotten that opportunity if I didn't like sit beside him on a flight and just chat him up in general. Friends in Vancouver I have that like I would say used to be probably more acquaintances than they're friends now, of people who are sending me work, but I wouldn't have known that 2 years ago. So I just found people that I got along with and I liked, and having that network now that I've gone on my own, It's been really good for like business development. It's really good for people who reach out and they want to like help with freelance work because they do stuff on the side. So I've definitely put together the puzzle, but I definitely didn't know like what the puzzle would look like now, 10 years ago. And it's just been kind of following the things I've been interested in. And I've been lucky that the things I've picked are things that are super valuable as a skill set. And the world's big enough that if you have a unique skill set and there's something you want to sell, you can sell it to someone. You just have to realize there may only be 100 people in the world who want to buy that skill set, and that's totally cool because you could probably sell it for a lot of money. But then if you have a more broader skill set, but you're really good at certain things, you could still sell it to a large amount of people. Because in advertising, there's just, to be blunt, we probably should fire 40% of people in advertising. There's a lot of people who are just really bad at it and shouldn't be in it because they think it's really easy. And like, it is easy to do the tactics, but it's really hard to do it right and execute it right. It's much like writing a book. It's easy to write a book. Anyone can write a book, but it's hard to write a bestseller. And if you want to become a bestseller, you've got to like own the areas you domain and have those domains be like your expertise, and then figure out how you build on that in different areas.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that, like you said, a lot of curiosity will take you pretty far, and even just knowing what the pieces are, the connecting the dots and everything. But it really does take more than just being comfortable with that to get this all to come together. So the question I have is, or more just progressing on. So you've had a lot of jobs between the agency world and in the world of, well, a lot of agency type stuff, but you also worked what I'd call client side. You've basically, if you look at a lot of your titles, it's paid media, but it seems like you took on way more than just paid media. And one of the things that I always recommend to people is, no matter what your job says that it is, if analytics are going to make your job better, then you need to learn how to do analytics. Or if you can't get your job done well because you don't have the components, if you don't have a good landing page, or you don't have participation among your company, then you're not going to be producing good results. So you need to be both curious as to like what else is out there and how can you improve it, but you have to have the right diplomacy to make sure that people will get your ideas adopted. And it seems like that's sort of where you're at the edge of being really talented in one area, but also have learned to grow outside of that.
Yes, I'd say that's pretty true. I mean, yeah, I started with like just running ads and then doing analytics. As I mentioned, because RIM just pushed it into me that you have to track this and we're not going to spend money otherwise. Being able to sell to people I think is super important and valuable. And figuring out like where you're going to go. And like I said, it's hard to kind of understand what you need if you don't know what you need. Like oftentimes, like even the other day, I was sitting down and I signed a new client, and I've never worked on a Shopify store before, God forbid. And I was like, I want to like get the URLs for every product item. Surely I can just pull an Excel sheet and get this from Shopify. But of course, Shopify doesn't let you do things that way. You do have to pull stuff from the product store, but then you've got to be able to like merge these different columns together to create the URL you need. But like if I wasn't really good at Excel, or I wasn't able to like say, wouldn't it be cool if I could do X in Excel, I wouldn't be able to take what some people might take as an all-day task and turn it into like a 10-minute task, all because I was able to like separate some things in a few columns, write a conjugate formula or an add formula in Excel, and basically tell Excel to add these columns together and build a URL for me. So a lot of times, being curious, being able to ask, wouldn't it be cool if I could do X, and then seeing if the platform or Excel will let you do that, and if it does, figuring out how to do it. Like I will be the first to admit that I do not know everything about Excel. Excel is like Word. There's like 90,000 features, and everybody uses like 1,000 features in it. So asking yourself, wouldn't it be cool if I could do X, and then Google it and how to do it? Because odds are whatever you want to do, someone else has asked that question before. And you could do pretty much anything you want with Excel as long as you know the features and what you can do. Like a cool feature a lot of people don't know about in Excel is let's say you've got, like in Canada we call them postal codes. In the States they're called zip codes. A lot of places in the world call them zip codes. But if you have like a postal code that is like alphanumeric, and it's like 3 alphanumeric numbers with a space and 3 alphanumeric numbers, or you've got an Excel that has like a first last name or a first and a last name, if you want to basically take the first and last name or the first half and the second half of a postal code and put them in 2 columns, there's a feature in Excel just called text to columns. You could just highlight your row, click the button, and Excel will just split the first and last name, the two halves of the postal code up for you into two columns. And what someone would probably do by hand and take like a couple hours, you could do in like 2 seconds and become really fast at your job. So just knowing that 9 times out of 10, there's probably a way to do it faster online. And part of that is like having the maturity to like step back and say, well, what do I want to achieve here? What does the outcome look like? Okay, I know what the outcome looks like. How can I achieve that and be like the most effective person I can? Because let's be honest, nobody wants to spend 4 hours taking the first name and separating it from the last name by hand. But like someone who didn't want to take a step back and ask themselves, okay, wouldn't it be cool if I could do X, is probably going to spend 3 hours to do that. Like at my last startup in the UK, the PR manager asked one of the interns to do something, and I happened to overhear what it was, and he was going to literally do it by hand because he didn't know what to do, and she didn't know this was a feature. And I was like, whoa, we're not doing this by hand. Here's text to columns, do it in 2 seconds and get on with your day, because I don't have time for anyone to waste another day. So being curious about like how you do things, why you do things, and understand that most clients actually don't care how you go from like A to C, and they don't really care what happens at B. They just care that C is what they want. It's the outcome that makes sense, and ideally is going to make them more money or make their brand bigger or get them more customers. So your job is to like make your client look awesome, figure out how to get them from A to C, and whatever you do in B to make that happen is kind of irrelevant in their eyes, because clients don't care if I spend 2 hours on an idea or if I spend 20 hours on an idea, as long as it makes them money. But lots of people like don't get that, because lots of people think about like, I got to worry about the conversion rate, or I've got to worry about the CPA. And like, even though the CPA really does matter, I more care about like revenue and lifetime value, and I care about like business goals. Marketing goals are secondary to me, because like you could fudge the marketing goals all you want, but you can't really fudge the business goals. They are what they are. Your LTV is X. Your number of customers you have every month is X. The amount of customers you churn every month is X. Like you can't really fudge those numbers all too much unless you completely lie. So making sure people understand that you want to look at like business goals, you want to stay like curious, hungry, and always ask yourself, wouldn't it be cool if we did X to like save yourself time and headache, and make sure you're not doing those like really boring Monday tasks that nobody wants to do, and you get to spend your time on like more sexy work that is just, well, it's just more sexy strategy. It's talking with clients about how they're going to make more money, and it's being just a long-term thinker versus of like, I got to get this task done in like X amount of time, because clients don't care how long it takes. They just care if it makes them more money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that. That's brilliant. I do use text to columns, and I had to learn that the hard way too. I'm definitely one of those people, and I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast are people who don't want to spend 4 hours doing something in Excel, but would gladly spend 3 hours figuring out how to save themselves 1 hour. So if if you're searching around trying to figure out how to do something or Googling it, then you eventually get to the answer you're looking for. And I love, I mean, the quote right there was great too. And then, I mean, it just seems like when I talk to people, or when I see people exhibit this behavior, I always call it like entrepreneurial, or even intrapreneurial, if you will. Somebody who's within the organization who's like, we need to do things better. We need to improve upon this. Just because this is how it's been done doesn't mean that it's the right way. And it seems like that's obviously a transition point where if you're doing that within a company, eventually the only way to do this all the time, or to do it, with the level of pride you put forth, is to go out on your own. And so you've already mentioned a little bit about how for the last 6 months or so you've been working on your company. Tell us a little bit more about how your company works. Obviously, what services you offer and how you came to doing it.
Sure. I mean, I worked at Unbounce for a couple of years, and I championed things that I thought were important, like analytics, and I just felt there wasn't enough people outside of the marketing analyst who knew how to do analytics within the marketing team. And, after 2 years, I was honestly just fed up, and it's kind of why, the big reason why I quit, I was like, I didn't want to go in an office every day and have to like explain things to people every month who just didn't want to like learn how to do things. And I explained both to my CMO why I was quitting, and I told the head of HR and my HR person and COO, and I'm like, these are the reasons. These haven't been changed in 2 years, and you're going to lose more people if this doesn't change. And we can't, it's kind of like Netflix. We can't say we're an A-plus player kind of team, and we want to be like Netflix if we don't hire A-plus players. It's just not going to work. It's not how the world functions. People who say they want one thing, but their actions dictate something else, are people who are not being truthful with what they want to do as much as they think they are. Actions honestly speak louder than words. And so I just decided, it's my 2 years in a couple months. I'm going to give my month's notice. I won't make my 2 years, but quite frankly, I've never made it 2 years anywhere. I'm going to go on my own because it's the beginning of the year. It's the best time to start. And so, when it came to like services, I looked at like, what do I want to offer? What can I offer? I never want to be one of the big agencies, but I did want to offer, what clients have called, and I guess I agree with them on this because it's kind of what it is like a full solution in terms of like running campaigns. So we have like a circle, and there's 3 sort of sides of the circle. There's basically discovery, there's basically convert, and there's also improve. And so during discovery, a lot of it's doing an audit. So we might audit a client's website, we might audit their Google Tag Manager, their Google Analytics. We might even audit their Facebook account, their AdWords ad account, and understand, where there are gaps in those accounts, where things lagging that they should, where are best practices or common practices not happening. We might audit it and say, I think there's opportunities down this road, i.e. for a fashion client the other day, we just signed last week, Thursday, whatever the first was. They weren't going after men, and this is a huge thing with fashion brands. Obviously, they always tend to go after a lot of women. And being a guy and also being a gay guy, I always feel a little bit neglected when I don't see advertising necessarily talk to me. And this is something I even talked with ASOS when I lived in the UK, is they were like, how do we own prom season? And everyone in the group is like, oh, let's just go after women. And I'm like, that's what everyone does. Why don't we build a campaign and go after men? As a guy who was raised by just his mom, I didn't learn how to tie a tie until my high school principal showed me how to tie a tie, because I never had a reason to learn. And there was a moment where I needed to learn and I had someone teach me, but I'm like, there's probably millions of guys around the world who maybe doesn't have anyone in their household who knows how to tie a tie. And why don't we build a campaign around that and go after men? I mean, men today spend more money on makeup and that sort of stuff than they did a decade ago. And even though people laughed at brands who went after men a decade ago, now it's a big part of the market if you use creams and aftershave and makeup and stuff like that. And I feel like there's this renaissance, obviously the last couple of years, was J. Crew opening a men's store, Burberry opening a men's store. And so figuring out where to go with those brands, I think was really valuable. And I think they kind of liked that insight, only in the sense that we should go after men. It kind of makes sense. And so doing those audits and helping clients figure out where they can go and opportunities they're missing out on. And some ideas will fail, some ideas will succeed. ASOS never went with my men's idea, even though I thought it was really on point. But I've pitched it to this new fashion client. I think they're going to take it because it's you could build a brand and build a fashion brand just with women, and that's okay. But if you're going to sell stuff for men, why don't we spend a bit of time going after men and trying to create a little bit of flow in there? And I think one thing clients automatically assume, if your title is conversion rate optimization specialist, your job is to improve the conversion rate, which is actually a misnomer. Your job as a CRO person is to actually get closer to the customers and understand what makes them tick, why are they buying from you, why are they not buying you, helping them understand what messaging is going to sell really well, and then taking that information and applying it in your ad campaigns, on the website, on your landing pages. Because even though you may not improve the conversion rate, if you put the right messaging and you increase the LTV or you increase the average order value on someone's shopping cart, you're just making them more money, which is what most clients want on the end. And so once we've done A/B testing in CRO and we've built out a plan for the next 3, 6, or 12 months, it's back to the beginning of making sure everything's working okay from the audit, making sure campaigns are okay, just going full circle until the client decides they want to bring it in-house, or the client decides that for whatever reason, a client the other day was basically fired everyone they hired this year, which included me, and rehired everyone they had fired last year, which I wish them best of luck with that. I still have access to their account. For some reason, they don't want to delete me. And I see the performance has doubled in the sense that they're spending twice as much money to acquire half as many customers for the last month and a half. So I don't know if the client will come back to me, maybe they won't, but I do honestly wish them well, because it's you've got to do what you think is right for your business, and sometimes I would agree with that decision and sometimes I won't. And outside of those 5 core areas, the other thing we do, both with each client in general, but as a separate service, is a lot of training and workshops. So if a client wants an intro to Google Analytics or an intro class to Google Tag Manager, or they want an intermediate class on Facebook or AdWords,
we'll do that for them. We do a lot of like audits as well. Sometimes people just hire us just to do like a one-off audit because they want to know, is the current agency we have doing a great job? Is the person we have in-house doing a great job? Or like one client, they're in some small city in the US where they don't have access to tons of talent. They just want someone to give like a second pair of eyes. Kind of like when you go to the doctors, you get a second opinion. They just want to make sure like things are headed in their direction. They're not wasting their money. So lots of clients will do like one-off workshops and one-off audits just to help them get to where they go. And we like that stuff because like doing audits helps us see how other people do things and helps us, build relationships with other people. And then also just doing training and workshop is a great way to make sure we know what we know. We can communicate what we know. Because if you can't explain something in advertising, then odds are that means you don't know what you're talking about. And if you don't know what you're talking about, that means you can't run campaigns. And if you can't run campaigns well, you probably shouldn't be in this business to begin with. So we love doing just one-off audits, one-off workshops. Someone approached me actually the other day and was like, would you go do a workshop in XYZ country in Europe? And I was like, of course I will. Just tell me when you need me to leave and what plane I'm on, and I will go and do a workshop somewhere else in the world, which would be actually really kind of cool because I've done training obviously in the UK and in Australia and like in North America, but it'd be cool to go somewhere I haven't been in Europe and also be my 41st country that I've visited and traveled as well. And sort of bring, even if it's only for a couple of weeks, bring my brand name to like another country in a new market. I've not had the pleasure of launching a campaign in any way, shape, or form over the last 13 years.
That's awesome. That's really, really fascinating. I mean, a lot of thoughts on that. The first one is that it seems like when it comes to the services you're providing and is this the consulting you do, just the way that you describe it, it's so much beyond what you'd typically expect from a agency partner, from somebody who's providing you with any of the different items. And I liked your, when you said, oh, if you're into conversion rate optimization, you're responsible for conversion rate you're for the conversion rate. And it's like, that's not really what it is at all. It's actually a lot more focused on understanding the customer, getting into their mind. And I can see that that's really something you've embodied in all the different areas that you've focused on. And so that's really good to see because I think that is an important piece that a lot of people forget. They think that you should only be focused on running campaigns. And I think that often creates a disconnect. If you're, people will quibble over the right structure for a PPC campaign and forget about the results. Or they'll say, I can't do this work until I have everything in a perfect condition. But the reality is the people, the agency partners who do the best are the ones who try to understand the problem they're solving and take it from that perspective as to what is the problem we're solving. So when you talk about fashion, you actually think about your own preferences and say, well, here's how I'm not moved or not affected by the current marketing. So if you could do something that would reach me, then you might have a better chance. And I think that's something that is respected a lot more than just being a pure vendor. And so, I mean, obviously it's pretty early into the process, but it sounds like you're getting some good opportunities to take that and put that in place.
Yeah, we certainly are. I mean, we've had some really good opportunities in the last 5 months, which has been really good. Part of it's, networking. Part of it was just people referring business to me. And yeah, we definitely, I think I struggle, are we an ad agency? Are we like a consultancy? And, I think at the end of the day, we're kind of a bit of both. And we're also nothing at the end of the day. Like I also tell clients, I don't really care what you call my company to outside people. It's more about like the work we do. And going back to your point before about my job titles, I've never cared like what my job title is. My job title doesn't dictate what I do or what I work on. Like you can work on as much or as little as you want at any job. You just have to like ask for the responsibility. Or in some cases, which I've done and it's always been risky, is like take the responsibility, do the work, and then ask for forgiveness in the back end if it doesn't work out. And that's my preferred way to work. I'd rather ask for forgiveness than sometimes ask for permission when you have a job, because sometimes people just say no just to say no. Sometimes people say no because they're threatened by you and they're fearful that you might take their job. And some people say no just because they're a bad manager and they don't understand how like you need to do this X, Y, Z so you can be better at your job. So yeah, if you just have if you just have an agency or a company and all they do is just run your AdWords and your Facebook and they don't talk about like doing audits or analytics or Google Tag Manager, they don't talk about landing pages, so they don't even talk about like taking the information from your campaign and applying it to your website so you have a better experience, and that's definitely not an agency you want to work with. Like why work with a company who's doing the bare minimum just to like keep you as a client and get by? And so we try to always like improve clients and help them in any way we can within like our core expertise, which is basically how do we make you more money and how do we make you more successful and how do you like keep you as a customer at the end of the day, and so you don't like sack us for some reason. And so yeah, it's job titles are X, Y, and Z. It doesn't mean you can't work on other stuff, and we definitely don't just run campaigns. If somebody came to me and said, Duane, we just want you to run our AdWords, we'd probably say no. Like, I enjoy that work of just running campaigns, but that's not why I want people to hire us. I want them to hire us for this other stuff over here, and then we just happen to also run campaigns. Because like if we're doing strategy and we're doing like analytics and CRO and A/B testing and landing pages, well, you might as well just give us your campaigns to do all the work as well, because it's a lot easier to communicate with one company versus having to communicate with two companies and have the opportunity for miscommunication or broken telephone to happen. Like the fashion client just told me this morning they're going to basically fire the other agency because it's like, well, you might as well just manage everything. Because like, it's no point having two agencies and paying two fees. And I'm like, well, yeah, why would you pay two fees? It seems silly. So if a client fires the other agency, I feel bad for the other agency. But like, this is 2017, and if you don't step up, small little shops like me are going to come for your business because there's no room for slackers anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it seems like, I mean, even the name you chose for your company, it sort of plays into where you're taking this thing, and that is big risk, big reward. At least that's sort of how I'm seeing it. And that is, yes, you can bring me in to do something, but you really want to focus on areas that are going to give them the most reward that they can do. And it's not always going to work out. People are going to often be scared of these ideas or uncomfortable with the ideas. But it seems like if a company really wants to get the benefits, if they really do want to thrive, then they do need to take a risk. Whether it's taking a risk on your company, whether it's taking a risk on a campaign or something like that. I like that you put it into the title of, or into the name of your company as well, because it sort of weeds out those who are not necessarily in the market for your services. If they see take some risk and they're like offended by it, well then they probably weren't the right ones anyway. They're probably thinking about it the wrong way. So I do like how it works in that perspective. There are obviously challenges that come along with everything, right? Because there's so many different aspects of running an agency and so many things going on. But I do think that focusing on the end result, which is what everybody wants. I mean, everybody comes to an agency looking for them to do something that they're not capable of doing. And that usually ends up being building market share or increasing the amount of volume they get. And what you had said earlier about you can lie with your marketing metrics, but you can't lie with your business metrics. I love that because it's absolutely true. Most business owners, they know how much money is in the bank. They know how sales are going. And marketing often takes either some or all of that, or some or all responsibility for that end up happening. But some of these things, they just happen because the business made the right moves and the right decisions. So it's cool how you're positioning all of this and also working through some of the challenges that go along with, specializing. Because I think that specializing as an agency is very good, but it also means that you're not able to deliver all the results that you're capable of delivering. So it's like basically high touch, maybe higher risk, but also tremendously higher rewards in the end.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, everyone sort of comments on the name when I say take some risk. Some ask me to double say it and double spell it because I'm not sure what I heard when I tried to register with the government. And the name was definitely deliberate. I spent like months thinking of like different company names and what could call it. And I want something that was kind of like meaningful for me in the sense that it represented like who I was, like personally and professionally. I've definitely taken a lot of risks to get here. And yeah, some have worked out, great, and some have failed miserably. And I learn just as much now from my failures as I do from my success. And my name definitely self-selects people, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to be everyone's cup of tea, or I don't want to be an agency that works out for everyone. And we definitely cater a lot to sort of like internet companies and online startups and stuff like that because they're trying to build their market share mostly in, the internet or outer space, depending on how you want to define internet. But if like a more traditional brick and mortar brand came and said, we want your help with this and we're having these problems, then I totally love that because I think trying to figure out that whole online offline world and merging those together is like super fascinating. Even though I definitely don't shop as much as I used to in stores, I still do shop once in a while, and helping the brand figure out how do you merge those two worlds together is like, I think, the big challenge right now if you run like any sort of retail brick and mortar store. And clients are struggling in that area, which is interesting. We definitely clients have that high touch. And so the way I've kind of explained to clients is, unlike most agencies that will have a few people in seniority and then lots of young people who are really cheap labor at the bottom, we're attempting to, in the long run, to flip the pyramid on its head and have more senior people at the top, because obviously if you have, 8, 9, 10 years experience in XYZ area, you could probably do 2 or 3 times as much work as someone who's only got 3 or 4 years experience. And yes, we're going to pay you $120,000 a year, but if you can manage 2 or 3 clients that I'd have to hire 3 young people for, odds are I'm going to either save a little bit more money or save a little bit of time, if not both. So we definitely picked a name that self-selects people who want to work here, who definitely self-selects clients. And then we also just want to like build a slightly different kind of company, because I don't want to manage, as I said before, I don't want to be a DBB or an Ogilvy and manage thousands of people. Like, I'd be super happy if this company grew to 6 people, 8 people. We have 2 or 3 pods that work on a bank of clients, and we also get to like launch our own product. I want to launch a product I have an idea for next year. It's like a physical product, because I'm super fascinated with e-commerce and selling things like online in retail. And I think like if we launch the product I'm thinking about and we get it in a few stores like across Canada or even just in Vancouver, it's a cool little test to like drive more sales for like an e-commerce client, which is obviously our own, but also figure out connecting like offline sales and online sales together. But it could either go really well and be successful, or it could completely fail. But either way, like, we learned something. And it also like scratched my own itch, because like I've got like a weird body shape, Jeff. So like, in the sense that I'm super skinny and I'm like average height at 5'8". So I find it really hard to buy pants and like jeans. I find it really hard to buy like decent underwear. Like, I'm not really a fan of undies. I'm not a fan of like those grandpa pants for underwear, or those like trunks they try to sell you these days. I'm like a big fan of boxer briefs, but it's really hard to find like good quality, comfortable boxer briefs. So my idea is to launch like a really boutique-y, kind of like the Warby Parker of like boxer briefs. Like, we do one thing, we do it really well. We have a few colors. So I'm going to see how next year goes, because I've got to like make the next 7 months and survive as a company, which I don't think there'll be a problem for that. And then next year launch our own thing, which will be kind of cool, and I think will help put our name out there to more people who maybe haven't heard of us, or have heard of us, self-selected because they thought I was crazy, but then realized like we know what we're talking about, so we're just going to ignore his company name and work with him anyways.
No, I love it. I mean, I think that's it's obviously good to have a vision around what you want to do, and to know where you're going, and also to have a few ideas in the fire. And I like the idea. I think that there's an opportunity for the taking, and like you do with your clients. Sounds like you've thought through where you want to take it as well. Thought through the direction you want to go, and set yourself up to be able to do it. So that's great. I know we're running out of time, so I just wanted to thank you for joining us on this episode. This has been really helpful. I pulled away a couple quotes that really blew me away. Something that I'm gonna have to start using myself to describe what we talk about in this wild world of internet marketing. Is there anything that you wanted to close with, or to share with everybody before we finish this?
So I think we talked about it a little bit before, and I think I just want to say it again, because for the young people who are going to listen, especially if you're under 30, you're under 25. I'm going to say, like, I'm 35 this year. I turned 35 in April. And so I want each of you to realize, like, to get to where I am was like a series of events where there was like successes and failures. And it wasn't like it was one road that was all successes or one road that was all failures. But I think if you learn from your mistakes and your failures and like what went right and what went wrong, and apply that in the future, and don't get discouraged, because you're going to fail along the way. Failure, I think, is actually a really healthy thing. I don't think it's one of those things where startups say you should fail fast and fail often, and I don't actually think that's really true. Failure is just a part of life, and whether that failure takes a long time or not is irrelevant. The point is whether you've learned something, because if I fail fast and I don't learn anything, well, failing fast hasn't done anything because I haven't learned anything. So it's really important. I think if you fail, you learn, why did it go wrong? What did I do wrong? What outside force, caused this to happen? And if it was, an outside force, it was you, own up to that and just accept that because that's how you learn and grow as a person. And then realize, okay, I want to achieve X and Y. What is it going to take to get there? And remember, it's a long road. It's very much like a marathon and not a sprint. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It might not happen next year. It might take a couple years. Like I talked to a friend last night. He's like, oh, I want to move to Canada and do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, you need to figure out what skills you lack because you don't have a university degree, which I think is okay. But in Canada, we're very old school and we like to see you have you went to college or university. So figure out how can you acquire more work experience so people don't self-select you and ignore you because you didn't go to university, you didn't go to college. And so figuring out what skills you need to get to where you want to go in the next 2 or 3 years, and then just sort of build on that as you go, and then realize honestly it's a marathon. Short of you winning the lottery or selling your startup for billions of dollars, which is basically 1 in a billion if you're going to sell something to any of the big tech companies, you kind of need to plan out for the next few years, and then the rest will kind of just take care of itself. And if for some reason you do sell a company to your company to a big company and you want to cash out, that's cool as well. But most people who want to do that, most people who have startups just don't. That just never happened. There's thousands of companies in Silicon Valley, and less than 1% of them will ever sell to Facebook or Google or whatever it is. So don't try and go for the quick sale or the quick sort of band-aid solution. Think about where you want to be in the long term. Much like if you're dating someone and things have got serious, you don't think about what's going to happen next year. You think about, do I want to be with this person in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? At 35, I think about, do I want to marry this guy / move in with him? Because that's kind of the long-term thing. And I think if you always keep the long-term view in mind while working on kind of the future self, everything will take care of itself. And sometimes you're going to take roles that don't appear to take you where you want to go, but in hindsight, they kind of do. I took the job at the startup when I was in the UK, and I definitely didn't think it was going to give me the experience I have because it was just I was going to just be a paid media manager, and then I just got the opportunity to step up and be a director and manage a team of 5. And so even though in hindsight that was a real amazing job, I definitely didn't go into that job thinking that was where I was going to be. But I took the risk because it was an interesting product, and I thought it would be a good experience on my CV. And in the end, it just kind of worked out. So I think if people can not get discouraged, I think that's a good thing. And if they can think about both the long term and the short term and kind of enjoy life, you only have one life to live. And nobody on their deathbed says, I wish I worked more. So make sure you spend time with your parents or your brothers or sisters or your guardian or your significant other, or if you have a pet, that's totally cool because when you're 90 and you're dying, you're not going to say, oh, I wish I worked more at this company. You're going to say, I wish I spent more time with the people I love and I care about. I call my mom every Tuesday at 8 a.m. and friends laugh at me about this sometimes. I'm like, it's our time to talk. I know I can talk to her at that time. She's at home waiting. She hasn't gone to Mahjong or some other class or whatever. And so it's important we have the time for the people we care about.
That's great. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that one thing that's hard about all this is the timing, right? It's easy to look at somebody who's successful and assume that they had it all together, but what you don't see is the decade plus of time and struggles that go into getting there. And just because you spend a decade in it doesn't guarantee that that's going to make you successful either. But I think that the properties of all successful people, and success is all based on your own definition of it, of course. But the properties of every single person I've met who's successful is that they don't give up. They don't stop. And even if they make it look easy, which everybody makes it look easier than it really was, because we have survivor bias. We just know that since we survived, we can make it look like it was easy. It was a lot harder than people think it was. But they never gave up. And the timeline is always a lot further than you think. But if we didn't think it was a short timeline, then nobody would put in the effort because it's a long time. But I agree with you. Nobody says on their deathbed, I wish I would have spent more time working. And so that's always a good reminder for all of us. Thanks a lot, Duane, for joining me on the podcast. It's been really great getting to know you. And hopefully we'll meet at a conference soon. And if you have any other final thoughts, feel free to share them.
Thanks, Jeff. I had a great time. It was great to chat and just, talk more, I think about my company out loud to someone else and have that feedback in the air. I think it's really valuable. I'm not speaking at anything in North America right now. We're going to be at Brighton SEO in September. So if any of your listeners are in the UK or they're going to Brighton SEO, I'm going to be doing one of the talks on the biddable track, talking about remarketing for basically video remarketing and how to do video marketing really well. So if they're come up and say hi, say you heard this, or just say hi in general, I'd love to meet some people. And then, like I said, just, enjoy life and make sure you spend time with people you care about. And remember, this is definitely a marathon. I've had just as much, if not more, failures than successes. But I wouldn't trade any of the decisions I've made. I wouldn't trade it because it's kind of gotten me where I am now. And it's definitely, I've definitely persevered against, all odds.
Another awesome episode in the books. Duane may be our most quotable guest yet, and I hope you found his wisdom as compelling as I did. And I also hope that you didn't notice the delay on both sides as we waited between answers. Interviewing with a 5-second delay is like water torture. It's hard for a talkaholic like me to interject and interrupt him when I know that he won't hear my voice for another 10 seconds. And it would probably disrupt his train of thought anyway. So I basically let him go, and I'm very fortunate that Duane was such an awesome guest and just had so much wisdom to share with us. So thanks for the chat, Duane. I'm looking forward to hearing about your continued success. And once again, for show notes, visit jeffalytics.com/risk.